Good morning. I'm Dream Queen. You're in the cab with me. Thank you so much for rolling. How y'all doing today? Just whisper it in the radio, shout it out in your house or out by your car or wherever you're at. Wherever you're at, just shout it out. I'll feel you and we'll keep getting through it. If it's great, it's great. What a beautiful spring morning out here in the village. All right, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do today. I'm here with you for 2 hours, and it's a full show. So what's been going on, y'all can go to In the Cab Radio at Linktree, In the Cab Radio on Instagram if you're already there scrolling with the radio in the background, In the Cab Radio on Facebook. I love that I have like 300 followers there. The truth is, that's always the last place that I slide the notifications over. But you can find me, Jada White, at Facebook. It's fine. My real identity has become an extension of my real personality, which is this radio show. But, check out these links, y'all. Because what we're going to do is build. We're building. And last couple of weeks, I've had some guests in. Very, very good shows, if I do say so myself. Travis Stroop has been cruising by and talking about the prophet with me, and also he was in last week to discuss food security with Little Queen Trashmouth, who is a food systems expert. And you can find links to those shows at In the Cab Radio, Instagram, YouTube, Linktree, wherever you find your podcasts. Go ahead and put in the Cab with Dream Queen. You can catch up that way. So I have not been doing my monologues. I know y'all missed my thought process. I know. No, I haven't been heavy on the sermons the past 2 weeks or so. So what I'm going to do is catch up on that in the first hour today. Travis is coming back. We're going to be back in the book club at 9. And we're going to continue our conversation about Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, which is in public domain. You can go to KhalilGibran.com or just type in Khalil Gibran, The Prophet, and free download or whatever, free. And the words, of the book will be presented to you through the magic of the internet. And you can read it for nothing except your time and open-minded heart, because we're in for hearts and minds. So we're going to be talking about good and evil. We're getting close to the end of that book. We still have a ways to go. I don't know what's next yet. Kicked around a couple of ideas. We might go back to something from Dr. Martin Luther King. I keep saying mights and maybes. I want to do the Tao. I want to do a lot. But it's just going to have to come close to the end, and we're all going to see where we're at in our society. Okay? Speaking of our society, one of the elders of the city asked Mustafa to speak of good and evil. And I'm just going to throw you one quote to chew on. A pair of lines here. Of the good in you I can speak, but not of the evil. For what is evil but good, tortured by its own hunger and thirst? Think about that. I know that many compassionate beings can see this. Many abolitionists can understand this. What is evil but good, tortured? Well, you know me, I believe in them reptiles from outer space. Those soulless creatures. I don't know. I'm going to get deep in it with Travis. I have a couple talking points that I want to discuss. I've been thinking about necessary evils. I've been thinking about, just all of these words that we use to kind of explain away our bad behavior, our shunning. However, this is a really nice poem, and it really touches on the fact that Gibran doesn't even talk about evil in this, really, except to say that if you're failing and you're good, it doesn't mean you're evil. And in this culture, we do get caught up in the binary. So I'm not going to go any more down that road. I'm going to save some for Travis. What I am going to do Since I needed to explain about circling back to you, what we did miss last week was the anniversary of the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Y'all know that, or you may not know, if this is your first time tuning in to the show, welcome. If you're in your little Airbnb or your little getaway here in the village and you just happen to have that radio in the background, welcome. Please don't forget to support our community in the many ways that it's available. And I'll have community announcements coming up in about 50 minutes. And we'll talk about some of the community organizations that you may be able to donate to. Okay? Because it's not just about spending money in a town. With capitalism, it's about helping support the infrastructure that allows people to live here and clean up after you've had your fun. And it's really nice to work together. So welcome. And what we usually do is play music in the first hour and talk in the second hour. But there's a lot to say today. I'm going to talk about today's astrology. We are in the hours of a culminating full moon. A full moon in Libra with the sun in Aries. We're going to talk about Dr. King's legacy a little bit. Usually I talk about him on his birthday in January. I did do that show. And then I come along and I talk about Nina Simone and tribute her on her birthday, which is roughly a month later in February. Now, you will not find that show on the internet. Sadly, I did not proudly break any internet streaming rules. However, the computer ears on Mixcloud, where I upload the full radio show with music, they read some of the cover tunes that I played as actually being Nina. So they told me that I could not publish that show because it was too many songs by the same artist. So that was unfortunate because, I love talking about Nina Simone. I love learning about Nina Simone. I just keep going on her. I just, I think she's one of the most powerful women in history and one of the most misunderstood, one of the bravest. Her character development is off the charts. But I digress for now. So you won't find that show on the internet. I'm going to try to do it differently today. We're going to talk about both of them. We're going to talk about them together here on April 12th. This song that I'm going to focus on in the first hour, we're going to approach it in a similar way that we approach the poems of Khalil Gibran. This song is called Why the King of Love is Dead. I play this song probably every year, either during Black History Month or, on Dr. King's birthday, maybe around Juneteenth. I don't know. It's oftentimes on my April 4th show because I try to give him both days. And I was remiss last week in my scheduling. It was a weird Mercury retrograde week last week. Travis showed up on the wrong day because he didn't get the message, and it was fun. I mean, I like going with the flow, right? That's the best way to do it. So, why the King of Love is dead? I was having a day yesterday, I know many of us are having a series of days. When I was having a day, my body hurt. I couldn't do any more. And capitalism was telling me that I needed to, that I had to, but I couldn't. And I have a privilege in the way that I've set up my life where I just, I knew the only one that was going to torture me yesterday was me. And so I made the choice to pull the plug on these streets. Cried a little bit. It's full moons, to be expected. All these planets in Pisces, to be expected. We get vulnerable on this show if you're new and didn't know. Cried a little bit. You know, met up with my buddy Cheech. And I asked the spirit to help me. And I like to put my mix, my saved songs on my computer program that I have all the music on. And sometimes I just let the shuffle show me. And I have a little playlist. It's called This Little Light of Mine. It's got a lot of spirituals and spiritual type music that might not be traditional spirituals, you know. And I'm just standing there in my living room, my one room. And it was this song. Why? The King of Love is Dead. And I was like, oh, we're going to go back to April 4th. This song was written by Gene Taylor, Nina Simone's bass player at the time, after the news reached him of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. It was performed for the first time in this recording, which is on an album called Enough Said. I recommend this album. It's a beautiful album. It's a live album. And the songs on it, everything I think except for 3 tracks. Tracks 1, 8, and 11. Every song but those 3 were recorded live at Westbury Music Fair, April 7th, 1968. 3 days after the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. And that night's entire program of the Westbury Music Fair, was dedicated to Dr. King and his memory. So you will hear in this recording Nina discussing artists of the time, friends of hers, musicians and writers that were lost to us for various reasons. It is about 13 minutes. And Nina will tell you, the High Priestess of Soul, holding ceremony, will tell you that they only had one day to learn it. One day. So let's listen, and then we'll talk some more. Okay? I love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. Due to copyright, we are not allowed to play the song on the podcast edit. You can hear the whole radio show as it aired live on KMRD LP with music at In the Cab Radio on Mixcloud.com. Thanks a lot. Now back to the show. So, where do I want to begin, you might ask? Or you might trust me to know what I want to say. Y'all know this is a channeled message. And what just came to me was to remind y'all that the Knock at Midnight series is up there on these podcast platforms too. In the Cab Radio, at In the Cab Radio, all the places. And then type it in the link tree and you can see. We're going to go back to, what was that? Last spring and summer. We covered A Knock at Midnight, collection of inspirational sermons from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., edited by Claiborne Carson and Peter Holleran. I brought this copy with me, and I am sitting here in the studio flipping through it as I was listening to Ms. Nina, and the sermon Unfulfilled Dreams popped out at me. And I think it's good. I hadn't really planned on pulling from this. I grabbed it off the shelf this morning on my way here because Dr. King was the subject, and this is the main text that I have of his and that I'm most familiar with. So I decided to bring it on in with me, and it spoke. And I think it's really appropriate to touch on Unfulfilled Dreams as we talk about his murder. He was taken from us 57 years ago at a very young age. He was born in 1929 and he was killed in 1968. So he was not quite 40 years old. And He had so much more work he could have done, but he knew he wasn't going to be here with us for long. And that's the thing. So let's get into the song. From his foes, he did not hide. He got so many death threats, so many murder attempts. He was stabbed. His house was bombed several times. He was jailed numerous times, beaten by police. And he still got up every day and walked for his dream. He was dreaming of a day peace would come to earth to stay. And he spread his message across the land. I've talked recently on this show about a concept of visionary activism. Dr. King was the very definition of a visionary activist. He had a vision that was unshakable, dream, if you will. His activism was driven by that vision of peace for humanity. That vision stands in opposition to white supremacist greed and capitalism that has shaped America and globalized, colonized the entire world. White supremacy and colonialism and manifest destiny is a concept and a philosophy that only a handful of people believe in, but will do damage by any means necessary to feed their own greed. Being anti-capitalist does not mean that I don't want you to have things. That part goes with my environmentalism. Quit getting so much stuff. Do you really need this much stuff? Ugh, do we? Because it's just trash. And then we enslave people to make us trash. And plastics and the fish. Ugh. But anyway, I digress. Because capitalism really is based on consumerism and planned obsolescence and making more stuff out of cheaper stuff so that you can go buy a new thing. It's devastating to look at what goes on across the planet with the things that we think we need to fill this void because we don't have fulfillment in the ways that we naturally want fulfillment, right? So we are taught by this handful of individuals their dream of unlimited wealth. But what's not shared with people is that wealth is reserved for a select few. Do you ever notice that it's hard to get ahead if you are not born into money? And some people who are born into money find quick ways to lose it. It will catch up. That demon of emptiness. I'm going to bring in the astrology. I said I was going to circle back to Neptune. And we are also working with a lot of planets in Pisces. And Neptune rules Pisces along with Jupiter, which is a planet of generosity, of storytelling. And we covered Chiron and Jupiter and Sagittarius and back in November. You can go back and check that out. But we have all these planets right now sitting in Aries and Pisces. And it's asking us, again, what is your dream? And what is the story that you want to tell, that you want to create, that you want to manifest? Dr. King was very concerned about our souls. He believed in the eternal nature of the soul. He believed that it's really important that we cultivate right action. Will the murders never cease? Are they men or are they beasts? What do they ever hope to gain? Will my country stand or fall? Is it too late for us all? And did Martin Luther King just die in vain? I've seen people come on the internet and talk about Harry Belafonte's recollection of Dr. King, confiding in him, wondering if he was trying to integrate a burning house. All we can do is try. Sadhguru says there's no place to go but here, on this earth where we are to do our best work while we're here. It does not matter if the house is on fire when many of us have no place to go. So all we can do, all I can do, well, when I say it like that, it sounds like not much, but it's a lot. What little is to just walk your truth and do the best that we can do while we're here. I'd like to touch a little bit on the amnesia, actually. Getting a little mixed up. We have to be awake. The final sermon in A Knock at Midnight is called Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. It's a great sermon. You can find recordings of it places, and you can also look it up and read it. As I organize my thoughts, I'm going to say this. Another thing that capitalism has done to help this handful of people amass great amounts of wealth is manipulate our natural impulses. There are things that we naturally desire that have been distorted as advertisers and corporate moguls learn how to manipulate us into buying their products. And the use of the word woke against people, I talk a lot on this show, and I'm not going to give it up until people all get smart. What exactly is wrong about knowing the truth? If you look at what it means to be awake and aware, I challenge you to tell me what exactly is wrong with knowing the truth, unless that truth doesn't match what you want someone else to believe. Unless that truth is so out of alignment with your lie that it will cause people to take different action. We must remain awake to the situation. We must wake up to the situation. And so the dangers, we'll get there. The dangers of Neptune and the dream is because there is an aspect that requires sleep or a meditative state. Sleep is implied. I'll share with you something real quick that came to my mind last night. All these notes around me, y'all. Y'all should see all these papers and highlights. I ain't going to go over half of it. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story about a lizard I saw yesterday. I was doing an errand, and I opened the door to this little building. If you can hear me, you know I'm talking about you. There's a lizard in your shop. This little sucker ran right across me, startled me. I actually exclaimed out loud, which was what had me circle back to it as I was trying to drift to sleep at about midnight last night. And I'm like, what about that lizard that made me jump, though? And then it brought back to my mind my animal oracle decks that I have around. I have 2 different ones, and they both have the lizard featured as a spirit animal. And the story that jumped out to me, one day, lizard was under a rock, eyes closed, seeming to be sleeping. Very warm day. And snake comes along. And it's very, like I said, hot and dry. And Snake says, Lizard, I need to get out of the sun. This is the closest rock for many miles. Please, I'm going to come in there and hang out by you. You good with that? And the lizard, eyes closed, he says, that's fine, as long as you don't disturb me. And he's like, what do you mean disturb you? All you're doing is laying there sleeping. And he's like, I'm not asleep, I'm dreaming. And so we must continue to be fully awake and to dream. See if you can wrap your mind up around that. You have dreams. You might have a vision board. You might have a little list that you put out for yourself that you look at every day by the bathroom mirror. And you work towards it. Because faith without works is dead, as they say. But what Lizard reminds us is dreaming is work. And I'll tell you about this. When I'm in my head, the voices of society, the voices of family members or friends or haters, I've made them my own in some ways. And so they come and I might have negative thought to battle. Okay. And this is where we get to Venus in Aries, Venus coming out of the underworld. And right now she's in a relationship with Saturn, conjunct Saturn. And we're trining Mars in Cancer. And in my relationship, when we talk about Venus and Mars's relationship, the myth, the great myth of love and war. And Saturn is the great teacher, the responsibility that we approach things with, the diligence. And Venus has been retrograding with Saturn conjunct in Pisces, and they've been talking, and Venus has been thinking. And she's been feeling. And she's been getting disciplined about her love. And the message that we send with Aries is, what are we going to move on? What are we going to move on? How are we going to take our creative vision? So this conversation with Venus is happening in Pisces, in the dream world, the 12th house, the end of a cycle. And Neptune has moved into Aries, the beginning of the cycle. Right out of, I think it's something like 15 years in Pisces itself. We must nurture that and be prepared for our dream to be unfulfilled. We must be prepared for that. And as King says in his Unfulfilled Dreams sermon, God doesn't care whether your dream gets finished. All that matters is how you've lived. King says on page 192, so many of us in life start out building temples, temples of character, temples of justice, temples of peace. And so often we don't finish them because life is like Schubert's unfinished symphony. There is a level of acceptance of our imperfections. This moon has culminated in Virgo and is now shining its brightest light at us out of Libra, and we must let go of perfectionism. We must not let ourselves get distorted by the theories that come with the abuse of capitalism, and one of those is perfectionism. We must maintain faith. We must not let amnesia overtake us. We must not stay asleep. I think I must go open the door for Travis. He's pacing outside. And I'm going to leave you with just a couple of quotes that's going to lead into the next hour. Dr. King says there's a tension at the heart of human nature. And whenever we set out to dream our dreams and build our temples, we must be honest enough to recognize it. there is a tension at the heart of human nature. And he believes that we need to be really honest with ourselves, awake and aware. He says that some people feel it's a tension between God and man. Every time you set out to love, something keeps pulling on you, trying to get you to hate. He says, but he never mentions the devil in here. Just the duality of our nature. And when things get dark and tough and dismal and trying, as he says, we have to maintain and sail our ships toward the dream of peace, love, and hope. This is Nina Simone talking about the importance of keeping Dr. King's memory alive. She's referencing her song, Mississippi Goddamn, and she also is talking about the band U2 and their song Pride in the Name of Love, which was released in 1984. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Stay tuned.
It's important in 1984 because no one really commemorated or remembered, in my opinion, enough Martin Luther King. The youth need to know the history of America. Since America is on top, they need to know what we did there. And so I'm happy that I'm still singing it, because that group obviously had been thinking about it too. And in 1984, they were able to put together a sound that became a hit, which means that he is still now alive in the eyes and the ears and the brains of many young people. I think that's important.
In the Cab Radio is produced by Jada White, aka Dream Queen. Original theme music produced by Baby Weekend Boys and Icky Mac the Beat Jugular. Learn more at In the Cab Radio at Linktree. Thank you so much for tuning in.